Good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to the ASTROLABE, brought to you by Kingpilled. I am your host. What is it Buck Johnson says? Your host and humble narrator. I am your host and humble narrator. I am Matt. This is the ASTROLABE. Normally, the ASTROLABE is a me-only stream, but there's the possibility we might have a familiar face jump in here a little bit later. We will leave that to be decided by the fates. Says I'm a little bit quiet, and sure enough, look at that. All right, how's that? I have no idea why my little microphone adapter thing here just changes the volume, just reduces it down to like 2/3 every so often. No clue. No idea what does it, but I've tried to be in the habit of checking it, and audio is good now. Good. Yeah, a little bit late, as Cooper says. I was out smoking a fag, and not the hate crime version of it, just the nicotine version of it. Ruben has a cig brand. Oh, okay. You guys are in fine form this morning already. Well, we've got a pretty good show planned for you. Got a bunch of different interesting little clips. Some of them are ones that I've been sitting on for a little while and decided to go with today, and a couple others I found literally 20 minutes ago. I was like, hey, this works well. Let's fit this into the story this morning. So now I've got my superpower inserted. Let's get us started. So this is the ASTROLABE. This is a morning show that we started doing this week, and we're going to keep doing it for the foreseeable future. I'm enjoying this. It seems that people are enjoying it. And yesterday's show has not been demonetized as of yet. It's the first one. So we've got 4 shows that were demonetized immediately, which must mean that I'm talking about all the right stuff. And we've got one that has not been. So if you'd like to support the channel, you can send us a super chat. You can become a channel member, become a member of the Kingpilled for $5 a month, or the best option of all would be to join the Kingpilled Discord. Go to kingpilled.com and you can sign up and join the Discord and join the conversation in there that is always rowdy. We got a great bunch of guys in there. Like almost everybody I think who is in the live chat right now who's posting in the live chat at least is from the Kingpilled Discord. I think it's the best place on the internet to be, and we'd love to have you come join us there and get involved with everything that we're working on. Yesterday was a very long day. I did the morning stream, and then I recorded a podcast in the afternoon it's called the Carousel Podcast, done by Disgraced Propagandist on Twitter. And he heard my conversation with Pete Quinones on the PayPal Mafia from a few months ago and wanted to have me elaborate on it a little bit more. We actually wound up spending a lot of the time talking about Orthodoxy, which was pretty cool. He is as he described to me, he's a Mischling and a gonzo journalist. So he's definitely of the, sees himself as one of the more, what would you say, dissident outcast types. He prefers to exist on the fringe. Not unlike Cooper, I would say, in that way. But we had a very interesting conversation, and he said that he could say from own personal experience that a lot of the stuff that we were talking about back then, which has become much more apparently obvious that is true, he said he's got personal experience with some of that and can absolutely vouch for everything that we were saying. He has actually run in personal circles with some of the people that we've been talking about, and he affirmed everything that we've been saying, particularly about Gundo. He said, Gundo, he said, if you're a Christian person who opposes the regime and wants to see creativity and building and young men who are freed to be young men in the best possible ways, then Gundo is the place that you want to be focused on, which is good to know. There's a lot of cool stuff coming out of Gundo. So today, what Ryan Isaac says, not sure if you're cool with Andrew at the Crucible, but I think he runs a less expensive service, smaller cut for getting super chats. He does. I've actually talked to him about that in the past, and it becomes a matter of trying to incorporate it and keep track of all of that and everything. And maybe once I get more into the swing of doing things with the ASTROLABE here, then I'd like to get to where I'm actually using OBS and we can add other little graphics and stuff, make the whole stream a little more interactive, and make it easier to share certain clips, not have to do workarounds. Like the other day, 2 days ago, I tried to share this clip of I said this is the dividing line. If you don't realize why this is funny, then maybe this just isn't the place for you. This, I wasn't able to play it then because the audio wouldn't pass through, but I figured out how to get it into Chrome. It's actually very simple. You just take the file, the MP4 file, and you just drop it into the address bar of Chrome, and that's all it takes. So that's what we're going to start off with today. We like to do a couple little lighthearted, fun, humorous streams or humorous clips here at the beginning before we get into the heavier stuff. And we've definitely got some heavier stuff today. So let us get started. Do me a favor and hit the like button on the stream and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Turn on the notification bell and then share the stream with someone. I tweeted it out. It's streaming on Twitter as well, so you can go hit the retweet button on that, or just share the link. So let's just play it. This is a masterful work of art, and we are just going to play it.
Chat, we are goonered here today in remembrance of a Sigma, a Rizzler, George Marshall Cooper. The Skibussy he yatta edged to, the Mewers he blumpkin, and the Sigmas he mogged. It's hard to even believe he's goon. I thought it was sus when my Rose toy went off that day. I thought it was Cap, straight from the imposter. But it was on Skibbity. Our Rizzler had gritty dawn. It's days like today where I'm reminded of one of his signature joke marks. Gooning like a D1 bop in a femboy yacht. I couldn't comprehend what he was yapping about. But I finally skip understand it. Clip that, chat. You see, when a Sigma gritties off his battle bus into the next match, we should spam W's in the chat. For it is an excellent thing to leave behind this place of betas and bask in the aura of Ohio. Sigmas never get down. They're only gooning and educating. Thank you.
Do you guys skip understand that? Does that resonate with you like it resonates with me? Let's get some W's in the chat. Shout out to Ohio, the worst state in the union, and all of our Ohioans here. Shout out to them. Let's get some W's on their behalf. They really need them. The Ohioans need the W's because they can't get any otherwise. Clip that, chat. Taylor Brown says, not at all. He does not skip understand it, but he can vibe with it. Deep down inside, that may be what we're all doing. Josiah, you should particularly appreciate this one because they speak your language. Like every single one of those, I think, is a word that I probably first heard from you. Yeah, resonate. Do you resonate with that video? Oh man, there's something that's just, I mean, like the whole having like this really awkward. I don't even know if this is close enough to human to qualify for Uncanny Valley, but it's kind of the point. You know, like I think as AI videos become more and more mainstream, it's just a matter of time before somebody becomes the first AI production company, I'm sure, AI video production company that actually takes on big projects, that takes on like studio level productions. I think it's just a matter of time. And there's going to be a cottage industry, and I think probably a fairly significant one, of people who actually prefer it to be in the Uncanny Valley space, where you can tell that it's not quite real. There's something about that's still, like, it's still entertaining. You could still, you know, the story mechanisms and stuff, they'll all still function. It just kind of looks like really bad animation, which is kind of funny because it'll have such precise realism with some of the details, but then it's also really obviously bad. And there's something that's gratifying about that. And I think this is something, I was talking about this yesterday with Disgraced Propagandist. we were talking about the generations briefly, and the relationship between the boomers and the millennials, and between Gen X and Gen Z. And one thing that one of the differentiating factors that we were highlighting is the boomers and the millennials have this much more idealistic, comprehensive, totalizing, globalizing impulse. And Gen X and Gen Z don't have that in nearly the same way. They're much more, you could say, individualistic, renegade, that sort of thing. They're much more comfortable with inside jokes. Whereas, as a rule, generally, the boomer and millennial generations are much more uncomfortable with that. Like, everything has to be for everyone, and you can't have little niche communities that have their own inside humor. But the Zoomers are like our niche inside humor, absolutely on steroids. Just meta humor, and then meta humor on the meta humor. So like meta humor, and then meta humor, and so on. And we've talked before about the deep fried memes, where you get a deep fried meme, and it's something that kind of arises organically when you have a single image that gets reshared and reshared and reshared across all different sort of platforms and gets compressed and over again. And it just gets worse and worse. It looks all like crunchy and fuzzy and low resolution, and gets weird little artifacts and stuff on it. And so then memes themselves, like social memes, will take on the same characteristic. People start intentionally trying to do the same thing with social memes, where intentionally misrepresenting something in a way that, like, the in group gets that you're misrepresenting it, and the out group doesn't, and so they get mad at you for misrepresenting it, and that becomes part of the joke, incorporating the audience into the humor. And then the deep fried memes, Taylor Brown's on the same wavelength. And then what would the other thing be? So there's like intentionally misrepresenting something, and then there's like ironically supporting something that is bad and awful. Like, here, actually, let's call a little audible here. Here's a great example of it. Yesterday I tweeted this out. Find this image. This is just one of the best things I've ever seen. Right here. Oh, this guy is something else. So here is our champion, our Caesar. He is in the building. The power of the vibe of this fit leads me to the inescapable conclusion that our champion has arrived. Look at this. Isn't this phenomenal? Look at that. He's got it's like a cheap tuxedo. Then it would be even better if this wasn't a cheap tuxedo. Like, it would make it just so much better if this is like a $10,000 tuxedo. And then it's like, doesn't really fit him very well. He's wearing this big, lumpy, oversized, baggy hoodie underneath it. He's got these, I can't tell, like New Balance sort of sneakers. And the pants don't really fit him. They're like really saggy and baggy around his waist, but then they're kind of high waters. And then he's wearing a freaking tie on top of it. He is an absolute legend. I saw someone say, I don't remember who it was, they said that it would make a really funny sitcom to have a guy like Fetterman, like this big oafish ogre of a guy, comes out of this working class background and experiences some sort of traumatic brain injury and goes like super far to the left. And then he gets another traumatic brain injury and ping pongs back to the right. And he keeps going back and forth. He keeps bumbling into all of these accidents, winding up with massive TBIs, and it keeps flipping him from opposite poles of the political spectrum. That would be a funny sitcom. I would watch that. He was so real for this. That's right. So here's another. This is another like Zoomer humor thing. Is unironically. Or ironically, first it starts off with ironically standing this kind of thing, and then eventually moves to ironically standing this sort of thing. And you can't fight this sort of thing. You just got to lean into it. You got to let it go. His most recent car accident will drive him back left. Wouldn't it be amazing if that actually happened? Like, honestly, I'm becoming so invested in the narrative that, on one hand, like, yeah, I like it when Fetterman says based stuff. But on the other hand, like, imagine the story. He has a traumatic brain injury, and all of a sudden he becomes like this semi-based, like, working class Democrat. Then he gets another car accident where he rear ends someone, and he comes out of it, and now he's like a Bernie bro or something again. I just want it to happen, just for, you know, if the world you're going to live in is going to be crazy and incoherent, at least I want it to be crazy and incoherent in entertaining ways. So anyways, so that was the first funny clip. This other one you guys may be familiar with. If you are, you won't mind me playing it again, because this is one of those you just got to go back and watch every so often. And I scrolled across it late last night, and I was like, yep, that one's got to go in the ASTROLABE bookmarks folder. This guy says, I post this every couple of months because I think it's the funniest thing that ever happened and everyone in the world should see it. If you haven't seen this, you are welcome. You're so welcome for what I'm about to introduce you to. If you have seen it, you're welcome for me playing it for you again.
Just assured me that... Just a moment, you just assured me that I could speak.
Sit down inside the car. We're not assuring anything. We're under arrest.
Look, I'm under what?
Come on.
Gentlemen, this is Democracy Manifest. Have a look at the headlock here. See that chap over there? Get your hand off my penis! This is the bloke who got me on the penis before.
Get some cups. Just jump in the
Why did you do this to me?
Hop in the car. Get some cups.
For what reason? What is the charge? Eating a meal? A succulent Chinese meal? Oh, that's a nice headlock, sir. Oh, yes. I see that you know your judo well. Good one. And you, sir, are you waiting to receive my limp penis? Now, get your hands off there.
No, we've only got one cup.
Ta-ta and farewell. One cup, look. Dave and Brent.
Ta-ta and farewell. This is Democracy Manifest. And I think this guy was like, I think he was like some kind of broke drifter, and he's got sort of an interesting story, but this is like easily the most significant moment of his life, and it became a meme for all time. And I miss people talking like that. I'd love to walk out there and encounter a guy who actually talks like this. Just in real life, this is just his normal way of speaking. He has this aura about him, and he trills his R's, and just there's something like, make this guy king. Just have him be the king. I don't care if he just sits, like, hangs out in his bed chambers and plays video games all day. I want to live in a land where this guy is king. He became immortal indeed. I think he's still alive. Listening to that, the Australian accent is just so, get in the car. It's so na 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 na. It's like this really strange, pinched, tight little voice. Oh, it sounds so fucking gay. How can you be Australian and take yourself seriously? So, this next clip here is a little bit of humor and serious. This is our actual president. And I remember around 2020, people were talking about how cool it would be to get Trump on Joe Rogan, have him make the podcast circuit, so to speak. And since 2020, the podcast circuit has expanded significantly. Everyone has a podcast now. And many of these podcasts are very well watched. It's kind of like if you're a famous person, you might as well have a podcast because it opens up so many different monetization vectors, and there's a genuine thirst for long form conversation. Cable news and the traditional media and everything, people are universally checking out of it. The only people that are still hangers on to that are the most devout, ardent supporters of the regime, which are also some of the most incompetent, retarded, socially isolated people. The best people are all the best people in the world are all recognizing that the media is nonsense. Okay, so got to do another quick sidebar here. John Lloyd wants me to show the tweet from Antonio Brown that I read last night on Meet the Based. That was another show I did yesterday evening. I did Meet the Based with 2-Bit Podcast. I was joined along there with Buck Johnson and Dissident Mama. We had a very good conversation, and the chat seemed to really enjoy it. So as soon as I'm finished with this, you should go watch that. Let me find this tweet here. So let's see. Here we go. So let me find the original one. Okay. There's a little bit of a backstory to this. So Antonio Brown is once upon a time, he was the best wide receiver in the NFL, and then completely lost his noggin, went from team to team, pissing everyone off, and made a grand exit from his career. And now he's basically just kind of like a cautionary warning about CTE that we also get to be entertained by. Basically, this is what happens to a person when they like slam their head into a brick wall over and over and over again. I've had NFL guys before describe to me the way that what it's like to be, especially like a running back in the NFL, and they said if you want to duplicate the effect on your body, then the best way to do it would be to go out into your driveway, put your garage door down, and then sprint full speed into your garage door, and then get up and go back and do it again, and do that like 30 or 40 times. And then take a week off and then go do it again. This is basically what being an NFL football player is like. The closest thing to a modern gladiator that we have. So this is Antonio Brown's take. Just about killed Jason with this last night. So the Blaze tweets, WNBA expected to lose $50 million despite popularity. League is hard pressed to exist without the NBA, executive says. And Antonio Brown says, now note his wording that he uses here, because we're going to see it again in just a minute. He says, this is why I found all the WNBA talk to be hilarious. Nobody actually watches it. So when you're arguing about it, you're not really arguing about a professional sport. It's more of just a charity for lesbians. I'm never going to think of the WNBA the same again. It's going to be a charity for lesbians for the rest of my life. But someone replies and says, oopsie, you're a fake and a thief. And he literally copied and pasted Jesse Kelly's tweet that said the exact same thing. Not a quote, not even an attempt to change anything, just literally copied and pasted the exact same tweet. And then Jesse Kelly, being the great guy that he is, he reacted to it and he said, people ask if this stuff bothers me. It does not. If I wasn't me, I'd copy me too. There's the best attitude in the world. I love Jesse Kelly's attitude. And guy says, wow, word for word. And he says, honestly, I don't even care after what he did for my fantasy team back in the day. He earned that one. I owed him. That's a great example of magnanimity and projecting self-confidence as a man. I don't care if somebody copies me. It means I'm funny. Everybody else appreciates it. So now, instead of having a world where I tweeted the funny thing, we also have a world where another guy directly copied and tweeted the funny thing, and everyone made a big hoopla out of it. And it just highlights the fact that I tweeted a funny thing. It's a great attitude to have. I think one interesting thing here is, number one, we've got like a former professional athlete, an internationally known name, who is highlighting something from the Blaze. That's kind of an interesting development. And it also shows we've talked about like the fringes of society, and the fringes are where new things come from. If you want to know where society is moving, look to where the fringes are right now. Once upon a time, the fringes were the college campuses where they were doing all they were protesting Ann Coulter and Jordan Peterson and everything. And a lot of us who recognized and understood this were like, this is a big phenomenon. I don't know if people really remember. It was only 10 years ago or so, where the consensus opinion was generally, oh yeah, it's kind of a problem, but it's just a bunch of stupid kids and they're in their college campuses, and eventually they'll hit the real world and they'll learn this stuff doesn't fly out there. And here we are 10 years later, and that phenomenon that started in these little fringe circles of dorky, confused theater kids who don't even know what sort of equipment they're supposed to have. That thing began there on the fringes, and it's now like the most mainstream thing that heads of state and all the most important and famous people in the world are all talking about and discussing constantly ad nauseum. So the stuff that comes from the fringes is the stuff that's eventually going to be mainstreamed. And right now, we're watching this process happen with essentially the way that we see the world. The online right-wing, meme-making, thought-cultivating spaces are the ones who are beginning to make the biggest imprint with the fringe people, the people who are pushing the boundaries. They recognize the potential, the realness or the effectiveness of these things. They're capturing them, and they're beginning to use them in their own ways. Like Whitney Cummings posted a video the other day about how I can't remember her exact phrasing, but she said she's driving in the car and she said nothing. She says, I'm driving in the car and I'm trying to get my kid to fall asleep, and I hit a pothole and like, bam, I'm a fascist. I'm like, Just make the trains run on time. There's something about becoming a parent that is like, yeah, I want my kid to stay asleep. If you can't keep the fucking roads fixed, then I will vote in literally Hitler. There's a truth to that, and it's funny, which is why the transgressive comedian lands on it. But that's not a joke that she could have made, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago. She would have been canceled. She would have been excommunicated. Because that's really what cancellation is. Cancellation is just excommunication. We just gave it a new name because it's much gayer. Okay, so back to podcasts. And that was a good question, Ryan. Shouldn't we restrict the fringe from becoming the center? Well, that's the role of the king. The king is the one who has to mediate between the center and the fringe. Because ultimately, he represents both. Because on one hand, he's the first citizen. He is the representative of the masses. On the other hand, he's the only king. He's literally the most fringe thing possible. There's literally one of him. Only one of him. And this is represented then by this gaudy thing that he wears on his head that encircles his head, that's heavy, that's covered in jewels, that's gold, it's expensive, it's ostentatious, it's an excess, it's an unnecessary excess. But it actually is necessary. It's necessary in its unnecessariness. The fact that it's there is indicative of this excess and the role of the king in integrating the fringes properly with the center. What you don't want is the fringes in the center existing in this chaotic polarity that is completely uncontained. So when you eliminate masculinity from the society, you're eliminating that function. Because the king function is like the apotheosis of masculinity. It's the most distilled form of it. The king, the father, the head of the tribe, the patriarch. So the role is to, as a king, is to incorporate that, to blend the fringe with the center, to bring them together, and his job is to bridge that gap in his person. So he has to. It's not an easy calling. It's very difficult, but all of society falls apart when he's not there. So then each individual man then has to mediate between these things. Josiah says mediates between high class and low class as man mediates heaven and earth. Bingo. That's exactly it. AKA Christ. All right, so Donald Trump went on which brother is this? I think it's Logan. I can't keep these guys straight. Rand Paul's kids. There's Logan and Jake Paul, and I believe this is Logan. So Donald Trump went on Logan Paul's podcast. This is very interesting. Like once upon a time, it was a stretch to see if Trump would even go on Joe Rogan. Now we have like an imitation of an imitation of an imitation of an imitation of Joe Rogan, and here Trump is out presenting himself, going onto a podcast of, I believe, is a Zoomer. He at least exists kind of in that world. He's sort of trans, like Zoomer millennial. This is very much not Trump's world. This is not his class of people. I guarantee you he doesn't get all the humor and everything of it. But he's also, as Trump, he's just like, yeah, I'll talk to anyone. I don't care. He just likes people. He likes people. He likes talking. He likes having fun. So the video went out yesterday. I think I showed it on the stream yesterday morning, or I talked about it, of the two of them doing the wrestling thing. They go up and they have a stare down, and then Trump cracked first, so obviously he's gay. And then they give each other a big bro hug, and you could see that Trump, this isn't his native element, but it also is. Like he's getting in with the bros and being a guy and having fun and just being a dude. Like that's Trump's element. Cooper says he's older than me, so he's a millennial. Okay. So he goes on this podcast, and I haven't listened to the whole thing. I just saw this clip that Colin Rugg, who's a guy who specializes in making things go viral, he says, new, Donald Trump says the existence of aliens is believable. Says he has talked to pilots like, quote, Tom Cruise but taller, who told him about the UFOs they saw. So he quotes from a bunch of in the clip here, but we'll just play the clip for you guys.
Yeah, UFOs, UAPs.
I know.
The disclosure we've seen in Congress recently. It's confusing and upsetting a lot of Americans because there's something happening. There are unidentified aerial phenomena in the sky. We don't know what they are. Do you?
So it's such a question I do get a lot, and it's such an interesting question. I've met with pilots that look just like you, actually. Okay, they have more of a crew cut. Okay, they look like him and they look like you. Some of them look like you,
A little fatter.
but these are perfect people, and they're not
crazy.
conspiratorial. They're not crazy, and they tell me stories that they've seen things that you wouldn't believe. These are not people that you would say, "Gee, oh, that's
No way.
okay."
President of the United States.
But
I said, was
Who
your
is
phone
it? That's
silent?
Joe Biden wanting to do an interview. So I've met with pilots, like beautiful Tom Cruise, but taller. Okay? Handsome, perfect people. Sir, there was something there that was round in form and going like 4 times faster than my super jet fighter plane. And I look at these guys, and they really mean it.
Yeah.
And
I love it how he says going 4 times faster than my super jet fighter plane. He talks like an 8-year-old, which is, and it's not, that's not a criticism of him. It's phenomenal. How can you not love the man? The people who don't love him are way too stuffy and take themselves way too seriously. Sir, another sir story. I told you guys, I love these sir stories. I can't get enough of them. And it's interesting the way you kind of look, to see the things he's not saying, you can kind of pick them up by the things he's saying. So he's getting into this territory talking about conspiratorial stuff or whatever. So what does he want to do? He wants to lead with, now these aren't like these strung out, crazy, kooky guys who are living in cardboard boxes and walking around wearing A-frames, ringing bells. No, these are like, they look like you. Like they look like the strong, masculine man, and they're like decent, strapping young lads, and they're flying their super jet fighter planes, and they're telling me, sir, look at these things.
And am I a believer? No, I can't say I am. But I have met with people that are serious people that say there's some really strange things that they see flying around out there. And, if you go to Nevada and you look at that little section of where they go to look at the aliens, where they think all the aliens are landing, that, it's one of, I think it's maybe the number 1 tourist attraction in the United States.
Roswell?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Roswell. I think it's the number 1. It's the lines of people waiting. You have no idea how many times I'm asked that question.
But don't you have access to that information?
I have access, and I speak to people about it. I've had actually meetings on it, and they will tell you there's something going on. When they say things are going 4 times faster than my beautiful top-of-the-line airplane that goes, real fast.
With no identifiable propulsion
Mach
system.
2,
Yeah.
right?
These things are creating their own gravity fields, allegedly.
Well, they have people that are very smart and very solid have said they believe there is something out there. And, it makes sense that there could be. I've never been convinced, even despite that. I just, for some reason, it's not my thing. But a lot of people believe that it's true. A lot of very good, solid people believe it's true.
What? And
I know there are illegal aliens out there, but those are the ones that come through the border. We have plenty of them. Those are the ones I know. When you say aliens, I say, are they illegal aliens? These might be illegal, but we don't want to test them.
Yeah.
Because if they can go 4 times faster, we're not going to test them. So it's an interesting question.
Yeah, for sure.
Is there a chance that one of these orgs is potentially hiding information from you about aliens?
I guess so.
That's a good question.
It's you have the deep state, and you do have a deep state, and certainly they could. But I don't think on this subject. I was interested in it because I've been asked so many times, and I talked to people that have said that they've, it was a sighting, and it's very believable. It's very possible that there is something, and why wouldn't there be? You take a look at the universe and you see all of the different planets, and you see this, look, here we are on one relatively small planet. Why wouldn't there be on a planet that's, 400 times the size? Why wouldn't there be
Look at his face.
somebody? So, it's certainly believable to me.
Who, to all the nothing ever happens guys, I got to tell you, you got to make the case to me that if I would have told you 4 years ago, 8 years ago, that even maybe 2 years ago, that the front runner for president of the United States would be sitting down with a YouTuber like Logan Paul with his history and his reputation and talking about aliens and talking about it like lending credence to it. You can, again, there's some of this stuff where you could tell, Taylor Brown says you can absolutely tell when he's bullshitting you about the topic, but you can't even be mad because it ends up being a hilarious diatribe. Right. Like, I don't expect Trump to come out and like pull back the curtain and explain everything. It'd be stupid for him to do that for a whole bunch of different reasons. But he's coming out and he's saying, like, he's dealing with the question directly, and he's giving you a lot of information even without actively giving you information. He knows how to, for all the people that talk about Trump being like kind of like shallow or retarded or something, he's an exceptional communicator. It would be a retarded guy. There's no way that he would have the knowledge that Trump has in his mind and could talk through that compellingly and interestingly without actually really saying anything, but still lending the idea that, yeah, there's something out there. And there's kind of two separate issues here. There is what's causing these unidentified aerial phenomenon that violate the laws of physics as we know them. And then there's what's the source of that. And is that source extraterrestrial or is it terrestrial? And kind of reading between the lines, what I happen to believe is that they're not extraterrestrial, but they're terrestrial, and that these are like advanced technologies that have been cultivated by secretive groups of human beings, essentially reenacting Prometheus over and over again. And reading between the lines, it sounds to me like that's what he's saying. He's saying, he's leaving the aliens question open, but he's like, yeah, there's some stuff out there. These things are real. There's definitely things that are real that we can't explain or that we don't have a public explanation for. He's verifying and confirming that. And then he's saying, is it aliens? I don't know. I don't really think it's aliens, but there's something out there. And maybe there is aliens out there somewhere. He leaves himself open-ended, but you can tell by the way he chooses to talk about it precisely the point that he's making. So let's see here. Another couple quick stories. Let's save that for the end. So we're gonna return to talk about something related to Trump and his odds for the presidency and everything here in a little bit. But let's hit a couple of other quick stories, and then we'll get into some of the longer ones. So the first one, a tweet from our favorite growing noticer, Scott Adams. This is an interesting take. He says, DEI will drive black men and women toward dying legacy corporations, while white men and Asian Americans are pushed into AI-fueled entrepreneurialism. We already observe it. The predictable outcome is white and Asian American economic domination like we have never seen, because the human-heavy companies are all toast. DEI is doing this. That's an interesting observation. I hadn't really made that connection that explicitly before, but the effect of something like DEI, that's this retarded and destructive, especially the way that it's being put forth and implemented. It's driving people into the cattle car. All the adherents, all the worshipers of this new religion are being driven in. The function of the religion is to drive them into the cattle car. So they're all being funneled into all the least productive, least valuable, the institutions with the shortest timelines, the ones that are not going to be that are going to be outcompeted and destroyed. And it is interesting that he didn't include a particular demographic in there, which again, I'd say his noticing is still relatively in its infancy. He's moving in that direction. And really, I'd say he would make the case that he's including that in white, which I don't really think is that. These terms are so broad and so diluted that I don't even think that that's necessarily a misnomer. But yeah, there's a self-sorting happening, Kate, and I'd say this is optimistic for us. You could choose to look at this pessimistically, and you could choose to find all the cynical interpretations of it, but I come back to the Gundo phenomenon. Like, this is, I don't think that people fully appreciate the magnitude of what's happening there, the type of messaging that's coming out of there, the types of values that they're promoting, and the fact that these guys are going to form the backbone of the future war making capabilities of any future nation. So, I mean, if you believe that political power flows from the barrel of a gun, then the guys who are going to be the most equipped, the most knowledgeable, the most understanding, the sharpest minds, the most innovative, the most forward thinking, all of them are very closely aligned to us and our values. So again, I come back to what Dark Enlightenment said, that I think that in the longer term, there's a much bigger concern than the idea of this the feminine managerial longhouse globalist World Economic Forum type vision of the world. That's not a threat. That's not going to happen. It just functionally can't. It's literally impossible for it to happen. People can attempt to make it happen, and they can destroy a lot of things in the process, and that's what they've been doing, but it's not actually going to come to fruition. What, like Dark Enlightenment said, he says he's sure that he's going to wind up dying on the political left because everything is going to snap back so hard to the right wing. And it's going to be extremely gratifying because there's a lot of pent-up rage and hatred and resentment and feeling like we've had our birthright taken from us. We've had time stolen from us. We've had all of our future wealth, potential wealth. You know, it's easy to run these simulations and think of alternative realities where things could have gone differently. But there isn't alternative realities. There's the reality that we live in. And things are going the way that they're going, and we have to live in that reality. And there's going to be nothing ultimately productive or good or true or beautiful about taking the growing political power and ability to wage war that we're going to have and simply directing that toward the bloodthirsty extermination of our enemies. It's not even necessary. It's actually counterproductive. If we want to truly be productive and to build a civilization to be proud of, something that can reach into the stars, so to speak, then all of that becomes a sideshow. It's actually drawing resources and attention and focus and spirit and vitality away from the building projects that we can do. People will obviously have to be contained. Some people will have to be punished. These things need to happen, but they need to happen in an orderly, humane, Christian way. Not because that's what these people deserve, but because that's what we are obligated to do. So that's a little interesting story here. We got another brief one. Shout out to the state of Texas and my prediction that, number one, the American empire is on the rise, and number two, that the seat of the American empire, as it comes to its true, or as it rises to the ascendancy of becoming the true sovereign power of the world, that seat of power, seat of economic and political power, is going to be in Texas. You have the new Texas Stock Exchange that's going to be drawing even more economic and political focus and investment into the area. And here's a rather forward-looking move that they're making. Say what you want about Greg Abbott, but he knows how to shut up, Siri, go away. He knows how to be a politician. He knows how to be a statesman. He knows how to court these types of influences for building up and enriching and increasing the wealth and power of the domain under his purview. So Justin Urquhart, which is the ERCOT is like the power power supplier, the grid for Texas, recommends that Bitcoin mining be integrated as a controllable load resource to ensure grid reliability. They're starting to understand it. So I'm going to speed this one up a little bit, but we'll play this clip.
So ERCOT's job is to balance generation and load, and we can use load to balance that, to provide that balance just as easy as we can use generation. And so there are loads that will tell us we'll back off 50 megawatts at this price and 50 more megawatts at this price. And our dispatch engine will line the loads and the generators up side by side and balance according to who's the next cheapest megawatt. And we don't care if it's a load or a generator. All we care about is maintaining that balance. So controllable load resources are a way that loads can participate in, very reliable way for loads to participate in the ERCOT market. And the ERCOT systems, the energy management system, can actually control the ramp rates control how much comes on, how much goes off. And for a load, it's very useful for a load because they can tell us what their price points are. So we don't dictate to the load what the price point is. They tell us what the price point is based on what they bid in. And then our energy management system can balance both loads and generation that way. So that's a very useful way of loads participating in a real reliable method. Currently, we have about 500 megawatts. So we have 2,600 megawatts of crypto. There's about 500 megawatts identified as crypto load that has registered as CLRs. And we only see about 130 megawatts of that crypto load actually participating as CLRs right now. So of the 2,600, only about 130 participate. I said it was going to be short.
Go ahead and finish about their participation in AS.
Okay, so ancillary services. So ancillary services represent about 7% of the overall money spent in the electric market. And crypto is about 4% of that 7%. And they participate in 3 different kinds of ancillary services. So 4% of the 7% of the total market.
4% of the 7%.
Right. Roughly.
Tell me about your last one about economic curtailment that crypto mining does.
So when prices, our numbers show that when the wholesale price gets somewhere between $70 and $160, most of the crypto ends up turning off. But we don't have control of that. And I don't know that much about crypto, but the price of what is profitable varies from day to day, and so those numbers change. So it's a little bit of a hold your breath moment when we go into scarcity, not knowing for sure what that demand response is going to look like from one day to the next. I would like to see all crypto become controllable load resources. That would be, from a reliability standpoint, that would be real advantageous for
all crypto become controllable load
right.
resources. What are the tools you need to manage crypto growth in ERCOTs?
Well, there's some legal problems with that. There's some court cases out there, some software and things like that that would have to be taken care of, I think, before that could be adopted.
Okay, so I'll give you a breakdown here in just a second of what he's talking about. Tyler James says this sounds like a Jason Lowry idea. That's a good point. I need to get back down to Jason Lowry rabbit hole because I listened to a lot of his stuff a couple years ago, shortly after I got to Texas, and obviously I have some presuppositional differences with him related to ontology and anthropology, but the way he describes power projection and its association with energy, and then the association with crypto, and the implications of humanity truly adopting and beginning to integrate this technology into its operations. He's one of the most interesting talkers on that. And here we go. Here is our surprise guest on the ASTROLABE. How's it going, Cooper?
Yo.
I can't see what your name is today. Let me see. Oh, you're the Art Ho Alchemist. Excellent. Won't you go full screen again? Everybody else will be able to see it as well. The Art Ho Alchemist has joined us. Welcome to the King Pilled, Cooper. Have you been here before?
This is the ASTROLABE. I've not been here before.
Mm-hmm. It's the ASTROLABE on the King Pilled channel.
That's right. The King Pilled Network. That's
right. Yeah, we're taking applications for the King Pilled Media Company. Anybody out there you wanna join the King Pilled Media Company?
You're gonna have to work for free for a while, but
right,
if you're already doing shit, then
Right. We work for free as well, so you could just come join the club. Oh, hey, there you go. There's your name. All right, so this guy here, there's a nice little explain like I'm 5 of TLDR. So he says, explanation, ERCOT runs the power grid in Texas to make sure everyone gets electricity. Bitcoin miners can turn off their big power using mining machines quickly, which helps ERCOT manage the grid better during high demand. This helps ERCOT avoid blackouts, and Bitcoin miners get paid for helping and can save money on their operations. So it's a nice little quid pro quo where when you have these, the demand on the grid is really high, which is a big thing in Texas. You can't survive without air conditioning here. If we didn't have air conditioning running basically constantly for 8 months out of the year, there would be mass death. It's just a fact of living in a place with a climate like this. So managing the grid for a entity of humanity this expansive and this draining is a difficult process. And then there was a couple of years ago before I got here, they had the big freeze where they suddenly, it very rarely freezes here. And when it does, it's usually it just dips into it at night and then back up during the day. But there was a stretch for, I think it was like a week or something, where they dropped below freezing and had a bunch of snow, and the grid wasn't even remotely equipped to handle it. So people were without power for days.
My stepdad lived in Texas for a number of years, a couple decades ago, back in the day, and he was telling me, having grown up in Michigan, he also grew up in Michigan, that it was bizarre to him. They got snow one year in Texas. I think he was in Dallas, and it was like half an inch of snow, and everything was closed on like a Wednesday.
Yeah. The very threat of
that's-
snow will close everything down.
Yeah, right. Half an inch of snow that's nothing. You weak Southerners with your thin skin and you need your air conditioning to survive.
I grew up in Washington State and went to school in Canada. Spent a lot of time in the north. I would love snow. Please give me snow. I want to live somewhere where there's snow. I'm not going to be in Texas forever. Well, I'm just saying that.
Hardy northern stock. That's where I come from.
Yeah, that hardy northern stock would get real fucking wimpy if it spent a day in a Texas summer.
Yeah, but why would I live in a desert?
Yeah, I wish it was a desert.
Like you're gonna eat sand.
Yeah, I'm definitely not going to argue for the geographical inspiration of Texas. All right, so yeah, so this is I just thought it was an interesting little point, and this is the sort of thing that we've got this sort of tempest in a teapot thing happening in the global society at the moment. Everyone's all bogged down and sitting around waiting for each other to move on these same little issues, and we're all kind of revolving around the same subjects. But eventually, the human race is going to have to start moving forward. We're going to have to start innovating and inventing things and adapting to new technologies, and this is just going to have to happen. The people who are standing in the way and bogging everything down, they're going to be eliminated. It's like a clog in a pipe. That clog is only going to stay there for so long. Eventually, the pressure behind it is going to build up so much that it's going to get blown out. So you can either try to remove it in a controlled fashion, or it's just going to get blown out. Either way, we need to start building things. And one of those things is, as we adapt these new technologies, figuring out how to incorporate them into our utility structure and being able to maximize our own productivity through our utilities like electricity, and incorporating new technologies into that. It'd be really nice to have this stuff just not be politicized at all. Like, everyone's going to have their opinion on it. Your opinion shouldn't matter. It just needs to move forward. And the people who the people who know what they're doing with it, they just need to move it forward, and everyone needs to live with the consequences. Because the consequences of bogging every single thing down into a political debate over philosophical nuances and blah, 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 this is all just fucking stupid and gay. Just get it over with. Just make the decision, make it happen, let us live with the consequences. Bathroom analogy. You could think of that as a bathroom analogy. Yeah. All right, so we'll get into a little more of a long form thing now. This is an interesting thread that I read yesterday that ties into a lot of stuff we've been talking about around here. This is Monsieur le Baron, Mr. the Baron, says he has this book he's sharing from this book that he read called The Yankee and Cowboy War by Carl Oglesby. The astonishing link between the JFK assassination and the deposing of Nixon, conspiracies from Dallas to Watergate and beyond. This is my kind of book.
Do you know who George Oglevy is?
I do not.
Oh,
it's Carl Oglesby.
I know. It just reminded me of George Oglevy.
Oh, okay.
Sounds similar.
I do not. Do you?
I do. He makes good music.
Oh, okay. If you like it, I probably won't.
No, you would probably like this.
Oh, okay. Your mortal enemy is not happy about your presence.
I don't think about him. Ever.
All right, so reading from this thread. This is kind of a long thread, so we're gonna push through it. He says, I recently read this book, The Yankee and Cowboy War. I'd like to sum up the book and share some of my critiques coming from one of the alleged cowboy families. Essentially, it commits a failure of analysis common with many analyses. Corkboarding. Now, this isn't a term that I've heard before, so I was like, well, let's learn more. He says, but first, what is the Yankee and Cowboy War? The gist of it is that the conservative power in America, roughly what NRX calls Red Gov, or Red Government, can further be subdivided into two groups, cowboys and Yankees, with different material interests. If you listen to Balaji Srinivasan, he has a lot of very interesting thoughts on systems analysis and such. And he's kind of adjacent to the milieu of, you've got Eric Torenberg and then Antonio Garcia Martinez, and then they're kind of adjacent to Yarvin and the more tech libertarian inclined segments of Silicon Valley. And they have this operating framework that they use where they talk about red America and blue America. And then they also talk about gray America, which is kind of this tech libertarian, the guys who kind of just want to build, and they get involved in the political conversations because they're kind of forced to, but they don't really. They're kind of like, can we just sort this stuff out so we can keep building?
What kind of American are you?
What kind of American are you, indeed? Are
No,
you
what
a
kind
gray
of,
American?
I'm asking you, what kind of American are you?
I'm an Orthodox Christian, sir. I would be a red American, but I'm sympathetic to the gray Americans. I do think there's something that's kind of symbolically powerful about them choosing the color of like no personality and like drab. I don't think it's a framework that's necessarily all that complimentary for them in their position, but it's an interesting thing to think about. So back to the thread. He says, Cowboys is his name for a group as follows. Roughly, it is the military-industrial complex, its brain in the West, specifically the Iron Triangle of Orange County, California. It is the China lobby, the contractors, CIA ops division, and the Pacific Empire. Yankees, on the other hand, are composed of the WASP families, Wall Street finance power, the Irish-Italian Ellis Island electoral machines and their mafias, CIA intel division, and the Anglophiles of Milner's kindergarten, NATO, and the Atlanticists. It's interesting the way he describes these. You can almost see this becoming... So it's like you had red America and blue America, and now it kind of seems like America is being taken over by red America, where the two sides now are becoming the two wings of red America, the Cowboys and the Yankees. It's not a direct one-to-one, but there's an element of that. The politics of the 1960s and 70s are framed as a shadow war within the clandestine state, what we would now call the deep state, and political shakeups and major events are skirmishes between these two broad factions over control of U.S. institutions. For instance, the credit attack on Hughes by its bankers becomes a Yankee-Cowboy skirmish. The Kennedys are assassinated one by one to keep Cowboy ascendancy. Nixon's rise to power is framed as a Cowboy plot to wrest control from the East to the West. It's an interesting thesis, and it's important to think of politics in terms of actors and material interests, but unfortunately it falls prey to corkboarding. Am I saying that the ties mentioned are all fake? Not at all, and most are real. But the problem with drawing ties as simple lines is that with a couple lines, you can connect lots of people to each other. I can reach any politician or CEO in America with just a few skips of mutual dealings. This does not mean very much at all. Instead, let's step back. In computer science, we have this concept called a graph. A graph is a set of nodes connected by edges with weights in a network. Through graph theory, we can mathematize what networks look like. And the ruling class, like all power, is a network. The fundamental currency of politics is power, which is the ability to deploy resources en masse. And the way to get resources at scale fundamentally is organization. Bringing many actors together. If we imagine every node as an actor, we can give them a weight for their power. If the nodes are different players in their power levels, then what are the edges? The edges connecting the nodes are the relationships. And the weight of the edge is loyalty. Loyalty is a measure of how faithfully a node will carry out the will of another node. So this is something I'd kind of been thinking, I'd never thought about in this terms of corkboarding, but as I was starting to dig into the PayPal Mafia thing, I was realizing how very quickly and easily you can connect all these people across all these different domains.
So
and we sort of think of them as, say what?
Is corkboarding, is that like the Charlie from Always Sunny with the corkboard and all
I
the
think that's
lines?
probably what he's
Is that what
talking
he's
about,
getting
yeah.
at? Okay.
I don't know if he's coined the term, but it works well.
It's a good term. I like it.
Yeah. So it's you can make all these connections really easily, and we think of all these people as kind of like they're like faces on the internet. They maybe they have a Wikipedia page or something. We sort of distill these people down to that. But if you were to go follow each of these people throughout the day, you'd find this is like a normal person who's going and having conversations with people, and they go do business deals, and they just we have this person that we associate. Oh, this is a blue America loyalist, and this is a dissident guy. But then like they'll go sit in a business meeting together and they'll just interact like you would with your coworker or whatever. They're just human beings that are just relating to one another. The fact that they're participating with one another in business dealings or working on a piece of legislation together or whatever does not tell you anything necessarily about the loyalty that they have to each other's causes. A lot of these relationships are more matters of circumstance and opportunity. And just if you're trying to work your way through the existing institutions, then you have to participate and cooperate and have relationships with the existing institutions. Back to the thread. The problem of politics is getting many high-value nodes together and maximizing what you get out of them, how loyal they are to you. This is why bio-Leninism is powerful. It builds loyalty. The problem with corkboarding is that it draws ties disregarding the strength of the ties between them. Some deals are struck from loyalty and mutual sacrifice, from shared ties of group feeling. But some deals are just mutually beneficial to do. In the Cowboy Yankee theory, Watergate is brought about by the struggle between East and West, typified by Meyer Lansky and Howard Hughes fighting over who gets to influence President Nixon. Lansky is typed as the Yankee and Hughes the Cowboy. But why is Lansky considered a Yankee? The connection between his mobsters and General Dynamics is well known. You could say he was tied to the defense interests instead. Why are Irish machines considered Yankees when they existentially opposed WASP Republicans in the Northeast? Because you can draw a line from anyone to anyone. If you start corkboarding, you can create any two arbitrary groupings. And they will look plausible until you examine different sets of deals. Oglesby has Morgan and Rockefeller as friends. They were not friends. Let's return to our graphs. What is a node? A node is a single political actor. But what does that mean? Fundamentally, it means a kind of organization. So what do the levels of political organization mean? At the most basic level, you have the individual, the great man, or less great. Here you have one person with their own resources and their own willpower to enact change and make decisions. Many political issues are decided by a single crank with an autistic obsession. But to get more power, you need more organization, because power is number of people multiplied by average resources multiplied by average loyalty. The next political grouping, a very natural one, is the family or clan. This is the group of your literal family, but also close friends, your kith and kin. The bounds of a family are defined more or less by everyone liking each other and having personal bonds. You're in each other's monkey sphere, Dunbar. Like here is broad. You don't have to be friends on a personal level, but you do need to feel fond and act for mutual benefit. But you already see the friction. People regularly fight their brothers and break off ties with their close friends. The loyalty problem first introduces itself here. An individual is always perfectly aligned with their own goals and decisions. Any group has disloyalty. You, pursuing your own crank vision, will always give 100% of what you're able to give, more or less. But your brother, your mother-in-law, let's say they give you 80% of their resources. You've vastly broadened your support base, but what you get from everyone goes down. Above this in complexity is the tribe. Every step up in organization is an increase in complexity with an increase in waste. We'll get to this later. If your loyalty coefficient is how much you get out of your people, then what happens to what you're not getting? The larger the organization, the more power it has, but it doesn't scale linearly to the sum of its parts, but with diminishing returns. 1,000 men might only be 3 times as strong as 10 men bonded as a war band. The intolerant minority.
It's a good analogy.
Uh-huh.
It's really good.
A tribe is just a family of families. It's a linked ethnic group where you don't have specific ties to any other tribe member necessarily, but your family probably has ties to their family, and you act roughly as a unit. When you start organizing tribes and families into a hierarchical structure, where there are now formal bonds of obedience between the head of one family and the head of another, such that you can shape a rough pyramid, you have feudalism. Feudalism is essentially the human power default, where our instincts incline, because it has a very good balance between efficiency loss and overall power, and is relatively low complexity. State capacity is a measure of how well a state can cultivate and manage complexity. You can't have a war on competency and also manage increasing levels of complexity. If you want to maintain a global government, you have to maintain the most complex possible organization. Imagine, like you can't get more complex than a global government system. But if you're trying to pursue a global government system while you're warring on competency, by definition, you are moving away from your goal. You're eliminating the possibility of ever achieving your goal. The medieval period is feudal, but most warlord states are also feudal. The early Bolsheviks, feudal. An individual corporate department, feudal. It runs off personal ties from manager to managed up to the top. Past that, you have institutional power. In an institution, the ties are impersonal and dictated by some set of rules or laws which governs power flow. Rather than personal ties, people are loyal and obey laws issued from offices, where the office's holder doesn't matter. Some prime examples of institutions are corporations as a whole and the judiciary system. But let me illustrate some efficiency loss. How much effort does an average corporate employee give? 20%? It's just 20% ass. I'm not sure exactly what he means there. And how much actually advances corporate goals versus corporate fiefdoms? This is like the iron law of bureaucracy that inevitably in any sort of bureaucratic system, you're going to get, it's going to split into groups of people who are working for the ends of the institution and people who are working for the institution itself. And inevitably, the people who are working for the institution itself win out because they're the ones who see themselves as in an existential war, where they're not just trying to accomplish this next goal down they're not using the institution as a tool to accomplish a goal. They're existing for the sake of the survival of the institution. They will inevitably force out all the others. Institutions are highly inefficient. If they were a machine, they'd lose almost all of their energy to heat rather than producing work. But they also operate at unimaginably vast scales. Hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people. You can move these with institutions. At the highest level of complexity is something which is arguably no complexity at all. Ideology and faction. Here, direct ties dissolve entirely. Only a shared group idea motivates people, and they act without orders to advance it. Ideologies are the most complex of all. They're also unimaginably inefficient. If you scroll through U.S. political donors, you'll notice something. It's the size of a single large town. Donald Trump only has 77,000 large donors, which is people who gave more than $1,000. Imagine that. Only 77,000 people. Even among Anglo-individualists, you'd be an unimaginable skinflint and cruel man if you wouldn't spare $1,000 for your mother or your sister or your father. But almost nobody is willing to do that for a politician. The conventional donor class is about 200,000 people, leaning Democrat, with Democrats getting professionals more and Republicans getting small businessmen more. All millionaires. But what if you could extract lots of resources from people who aren't millionaires? Instead of getting your crappy $5 small donations, what if you could get recurring donations for $27? And your pool was average government employees making $65,000, baristas, and anyone with a grudge. That's the genius of bio-Leninism. It lets you get $27 from 15% of the population. So what happens in the inefficiency? Roughly, inefficiency is organizational power that doesn't get captured toward the organizational goal, but is diffused into individual benefits. Corruption, incentives, slacking off, all of this constitutes inefficiency, disloyalty. You could think of this on the more micro scale like an employee working for a company. The employee is there for 8 hours, getting paid for 8 hours, and maybe does 2 hours worth of work. And that other 6 hours gets wasted in talking to your coworkers or taking a shit or whatever other thing that's taking up your time, shit posting online. The same thing happens at scale as well.
Well, and I think that's kind of like okay, so I mean, it lends credence to his point that the reason why a company pays you for 8 hours, despite the fact that you only put in 2 hours worth of work, is because they're not exactly paying you for your work. They're paying you for your availability. So, I mean, I don't know what all the implications of this are, but the organization, I guess, your availability is of higher value than your productivity. Which, on the other side of that coin, I guess is kind of a white pill that if you take a group of people and you just pay them for their work, you can get a lot done. You know?
Yeah, very much so. And if you said they're paying you for your availability and not your productivity, if you have these bio-Leninist organizations, they're paying people for their productivity. Or sorry, they're paying people for their availability. Right. In other words, being a cog in our machine, advancing our message. You don't have to be productive in doing it. We're basically just paying you to not be part of our enemies.
Right.
You could come in and be as unproductive as you want, but when you get this economy of scale, you get sufficient number of people that are doing this, then you can manage that loss of complexity, but you can't manage it forever. Eventually, the bloated, inefficient, complex, lumbering machine is ultimately going to be taken over by the forces of history, by something that's stripped down and effective and efficient and manages complexity well.
It's another reason why capitalism is gay.
Indeed. Yes.
Because imagine trying to pull that off in like a guild system.
Yeah, it's only possible through capitalism.
Right. Like showing up to the job site and napping for 7 hours and then like kind of doing work for 1 hour.
Yeah, right. Yeah, there's no way. You'd get stoned.
Yeah, right.
Flogged. Hung by the back of your underwear from a fence post.
you wouldn't be able to get a job anywhere. Because reputation matters in those kind of systems.
Mm-hmm. He quotes Spandrel, says, "The right isn't loyal. Fundamentally, the left is obedient to its institutions, and the right is full of disagreeable assholes who want to get paid, even the normie right. To return to the original NATO setting, consider Operation Gladio. Stay-behind units are fundamentally a form of intentionally leaked power crystallized so that future partisans could pick it up and get them. Those loot boxes are still out there. But what Gladio is imagined to be and what manifested it are two different creatures. What it manifested as are two different creatures. Gladio was supposed to be a way to sponsor rightist networks of power that could provide covert assistance against communist threats and invasion. Last year, I was in spaces with Popehead. He has been reimagined on Twitter as this other separate, completely different account, that has nothing to do with the original Popehead account called Hopeped. Great follow on Twitter. He says, last year I was in spaces with him where we discussed Gladio, and he later shared some of his family's spook lore with me. I have essentially NATO command lore. Popehead lives in Italy. What I found was essentially, I don't think that was authorized. Or that. If organization is the art of conspiracy, call this the art of anti-conspiracy. Given a NATO mandate, Gladio is partly rightist support, but also partly socialist support, partly intra-Italian political squabbling, and sometimes the use of state force to settle personal feuds. Many of you are regular people wondering how to go from 0 to 1 in terms of power. Here's a piece of advice. Find a place where power is leaking and latch on, and you'll grow strong.
It's a good thread.
It's a banger. So I think this is very relevant to some of our recent conversations about the no enemies on the right and the approach of these internet spurgs who see it as their job to purify the right wing.
I can't stand that, man.
They ultimately just function as the shock troops for the regime they're not even smart enough to get paid for it. But they're constantly manifesting this phenomenon right here. Disagreeable assholes who want to get paid, even the normie right. Where you've got all this different, the very systems that they rage against, that we hate and want to move beyond, by their own nature, they drop these loot boxes everywhere. And it takes just a small amount of organization to go start scooping up those loot boxes. All these cast-offs, these inefficiencies of the power structure, they're out there to be had. But if you're motivated by some sort of a utopian idealist ideology, it's going to prevent you from ever seeing those or taking advantage of them. Now we start identifying guys like the Gundo guys or the PayPal Mafia or the Project 2025 or the Free Cities projects, all these different things. In various different ways, they're capitalizing on this sort of infrastructure and redirecting it toward their own purposes. But those who are ideologically captivated only see them as enemies, precisely because they're using the institutional power and the efficiency cast-offs or inefficiency cast-offs of the existing and pre-existing regime. So it's impotent signaling and people dooming themselves to failure. All right, let's see here. We've been going for an hour and 15 minutes. I was going to read through this piece. I'll save this for another time. There's an article here, John Gray and Peter Thiel, Life in a Postmodern World, a conversation between the philosopher and the venture capitalist. They have some very interesting observations about technology and solving social problems and stuff, but we'll save that for another time because I've got a few other things here to get to.
We're going to talk more shit about the Spurgs who want to purify the right.
Yeah, let's do it.
Cool.
What are your thoughts?
I don't like them. One reason, I suppose, is that I don't identify with the right per se.
Mm-hmm.
It's a thing about ideology is people kind of get all wrapped up with it and hits them in their tingly bits, and they they see any kind of, I don't know, they see everything as an intrusion. and like it's coming for their tingly bits. And I just want to let you guys know that your tingly bits are probably fine. And just relax.
It's like they're trying to protect territory that they don't have.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is it's like this like parasocial sort of. I don't know what it is. What do you think it is? I guess this is what am I trying to say here, Matthew? What is it that it bothers me about it? Can you help me out?
Well, I think it's like it gives you the ick because these are they're men acting like women. They're nagging and obnoxious and cynical, and there's nothing productive or wholesome, and it's all
there's nothing real.
Yeah.
Like it's okay. You're a collection of like anons on Twitter or something like that, and you've kind of created in your head this sort of edifice of like it's funny that the what's the term, the rightoids, is that what the lefties call them? I don't know. They shit on the lefties because the lefties want to be part of a movement and feel powerful. I just see them doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And something about it, I think maybe just temperamentally turns me off. It's a lot like something Jason said on your stream a couple of days ago where I don't remember the exact context, but he was talking about people saying we and how that drives him nuts. Because when you say we, what you're really saying is me. Like, we need to do this. Oh, you're saying I need to do this, is what you're saying. And I'm just not interested in that.
It kind of reminds me of something that you won't relate to this at all, but I know Taylor will. Shout out Ryan Isaac, $10 super chat. He says, nothing good to say, but just a beer for you this weekend. Thank you, sir. There's a phenomenon in the sports ball world where fans of a team will refer to the team as we or us or like, oh, we played terrible today or whatever, and I understand where the impulse comes from because you're watching this what's the word here, like a release valve for the desire to identify with a faction and go to war and win that war, and so you get personally wrapped up in it and you really identify with it. But it's always driven me crazy. I don't know if this is just autism or something.
It's the same phenomenon of like we were joking about it a couple of weeks ago on the show where, you get these dudes who worship a mid-century German ideology and they're like, that's me, I'm that guy.
Right, yeah.
And it's like you're sitting on your couch doing nothing.
Right. I would have more respect for you if you were actually following in his footsteps.
Yeah. I don't like it.
Yeah.
I'm also maybe not... maybe I'm not the best spokesperson for these things because I'm, as I've labeled myself today, I'm a bit of an art hoe, so I kind of break the mold a little bit.
Well, we need the
as far as right wing spurgs go,
we need the social cast-offs, the people who bridge the gap between different perspectives.
I don't even like saying I'm right wing anymore. I don't like it, just because I've gotten the whole rights. And maybe I live too much on Twitter, and I don't actually even spend that much time on Twitter, but enough to where maybe it's unhealthy. But they give me the ick. The right wingers.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of the same trajectory. Like, okay, I feel like I'm at the place now where, okay, so remember the post-libertarian moment. And reflecting upon libertarians and being like, wow, I can't believe I used to think all that. That was really, really gay.
Yeah.
And now when I think of libertarians, I can't think of anything but like sucking dick or something, just being gay.
Yeah.
I'm kind of feeling the same way where it's like I passed through the libertarian thing, come out the other side, and I'm like, okay, I learned some valuable things. Most of that was a waste of time. You guys are gay. Stop. I feel like the same thing has happened on the right-wing trajectory. Is I feel like I'm kind of coming out the other side. I'm like, okay, I learned some valuable things. Most of that was a waste of time. You guys are gay. And now I don't really know where I stand. I feel like I'm back in no man's land. But I actually kind of prefer to be in this space, in this place, than being part of we.
So the there's a similarity here, I think, where libertarians are like, when you really start trying to like, what are these libertarians like? Who are they? What identifies you? And you realize that libertarian is really just a stand-in for not a statist. And then it seems like right wing is now just a stand-in for not a leftist. But it's like, okay, so you're telling me what you're not, but what are you?
Yeah,
what are you doing? What are you existing for? What are you pursuing? And then furthermore, is that thing worthwhile? Do I want to be a part of that? Is there productivity involved in this somewhere, or is it just masturbatory?
Well, and I feel like a lot of my like on a conceptual, or I guess ideological. I'm not an ideologue at all. I'm actually pretty much not political whatsoever. I think the whole thing's really gay. Maybe on an ideological level, if we use that term, I'd say, yeah, I'm far right, in the dissident right or something like that. But even nowadays, I'm becoming more and more disillusioned with that. But I think, like, as far as sensibilities and aesthetic taste and temperament, I'm an art hoe. I'm very much kind of traditionally kind of like a lefty in that way. What does this mean, Matt? I don't want to derail your show.
Patrick Spellman here says, gives me the ick, and then says, other guys are acting like girls. Did I miss something? Yes. What you missed is that you're autistic.
And I'm all full of contradictions.
Right. So it's called irony. It's called paradox. Here's something that'll get you riled up, Cooper.
Okay.
Our favorite king of the Goonics. So this was going on yesterday.
I can't stand this guy.
Friend of the show, Meta Prime. I read this tweet to you guys yesterday.
There's some drama going on with him now too. So this is another thing. I tuned into the Twitter today, which I do like maybe twice a week or something, to see what people are up to. And now some of the other Twitter people who I normally like, and Meta Prime's wrapped up in this, they're now arguing with each other. I'm like, ugh.
And I happen to know some of the background here because I've been having some conversations with Meta Prime and with Dimes, and the three of us are actually going to be having a conversation next week on precisely this subject, and really what we're talking about here, like this whole right wing thing that everybody seems to like. Everyone checks in and kind of participates in, and is like it's like, okay, well, so we've all been kind of standing around here, and we're just having the same conversations over and over again. So like, let's start moving forward. Let's start building something, anything. Like really, I don't give a shit what you build. Just start building something. Let's start like generating positive momentum somewhere. And he's identifying the thing with I shared the other day, Brianna Wu, and you've got Lauren Southern, and you've got Richard Hanania, and you've got all these different like post-leftists who are following the trends of popularity. Now it's becoming popular and fashionable to be racist and sexist and misogynist and all this sorts of things. All these things that have been these have been like the staples of like, this is the language that we speak in right-wing Twitter and the different YouTube channels and everything. Now the popular people, the people who are craving popularity, they're seeing the trend of things, and now they're starting to take on our language, and it's sending these guys, it's really highlighting how shallow and empty a lot of the people in these circles have been. That they're just identified by the fact that we're racist and we're sexist and we talk about that to each other. But now other people are coming and doing it, and no, you're not one of us. You can't use our words.
Right. That's the thing that really annoys me. Where, like, okay, I understand the impulse to see all the post-lefty, dirtbag red scare chicks, like, kind of slithering into your circles, and I understand why you're like, snakes. But don't you guys have something better to do than like doing the gatekeeping thing on fucking Twitter?
Well, and it's apparent that they don't. This whole thing is
exactly. That's the thing that bothers me the most about these guys, is like, you guys see things so clearly, and yet you're totally missing it.
So Meta Prime posts this tweet where he says, You'll notice these people who are trying to wear, it's like this, they're trying to wear our culture as a skin suit. They're coming in here and so they're going to talk about these things. Yes.
They're easy to identify.
Yes.
Don't get wrapped up in any kind of like, important business dealings or anything with them. Know who they are, kind of keep them at arm's length, but let them carry the culture in our direction. Why not?
And what they're highlighting is that if we're to advance anything meaningful, it's got to be something beyond simply noticing or simply taking this culture on as a costume. It can't just be hitting all the talking points. It has to be getting to the stuff that really matters.
Well, and furthermore, if you are one of the people who's been in these circles for a while, and you actually understand the worldview, you actually get the tree you were mentioning the other day. You get the tree, not just the fruit.
Mm-hmm.
Or the apparent fruit. If you actually get the core of what's going on, then when all of the grifters and the LARPers and all of them come your way, you're going to be well positioned to lead.
Yes.
Because they don't get it.
Right. Yeah, they them coming to this point is them indicating they're willing to follow you. So now you need to take them here. It's not enough to just get them to identify all the same problems. People just identifying problems doesn't magically lead to solutions. It's a step in the process, but you have to have solutions to direct them toward. And so you get the king of the Goonics himself gets all ass mad about this.
Wouldn't it be good if all of the degenerate post-lefty types who are now becoming sympathetic to at least the face value aesthetics of right-wing Twitter or whatever, isn't it a good thing to take them and shepherd them towards actually substantial or substantive, like the other stuff, the stuff on the tree, the down below, spirituality, virtue, not degeneracy. They're already primed for that. So instead of shutting the door and saying no, keep out, lead them to that.
Yes, but apparently this is actually a problem because
because Zero HP says, Lovecraft said so.
Let me decode this for you. Spirituality, Jewish. Virtue, not degeneracy, Jewish. Natural human over transhuman, Jewish. Local building of parallel systems, Jewish. Natalism, Jewish. And it's a shit post. They go back and forth. He calls him. He says,
"This is the reason I don't like this guy. This is the reason why I don't like this guy is because everything he says feels passive aggressive. Where he just he wraps everything in just enough ambiguity and this is just a shit post. He always gives himself plausible deniability. He never just like stakes out his position and says,
"It's very Jewish."
This is what I think. Yeah,
right. Well, and you know what's really interesting here. Let's armchair psychologize him. This gets him nice and mad when people do this. So, what's happening here is he's notorious for being very protective of his identity, and there's all this mystique. He uses a voice modulator when he goes on podcasts, and he's got this anonymous account. He's the king of the anons, and what's the term for being OPSEC? He's all concerned about his OPSEC. And what's this OPSEC for? This OPSEC is so he can be racist and sexist online. That's literally what it is. Like, I say all the no words online, so I've got to protect. I got to get my OPSEC.
Well, and I think it's also kind of to defend his cred.
Right.
Because
but what happens
if you
is
saw
now
a picture of his physique, it's not very impressive.
Right, yeah, you could tell. Yeah, physiognomy shows through terminology.
Yeah, I guarantee he looks like the Chud Wojak.
And now what's happening is it's becoming fashionable to be racist and sexist online. And people are going and being racist and sexist online with their face behind it. The face fags are now being racist and sexist online. They're saying all the no words. They're doing all the off-limits stuff. So what's special about him now? He's losing his territory. And it shows that his territory wasn't meaningful in the first place. There was nothing substantial beyond it. And it was very interesting. So Meta tweets this whole thing, and there's a whole background to all of this. But he tweets this. He doesn't tag anyone. He doesn't call out anyone. He says fake post-left influencers. Why would calling out fake post-left influencers get him on the radar of Zero HP taking this as like an insult to him?
Yeah, right.
Unless that's hitting a little too close to home. And what was funny is going through all the replies on this, there was replies starting to show up of people who were like, why is this on my timeline? Why is everybody suddenly talking about this tweet from this relatively small account that seems pretty inoffensive? It's just like, yeah, whatever, let's do better things. And someone said, what'd they say? They said, is there like a secret group chat somewhere where everybody decided they were all going to get mad about this guy at the same time? I've never seen him before, and he's all over my timeline, and everyone's talking about it. Well, it turns out that's exactly what there is. He has, with this tweet, and I think there was some intentionality to it from talking to him, but with this tweet, he's highlighted exactly this phenomenon. What is it that a hit dog will bark? He is hitting directly at the soul of everything. So, he elaborates on this. Howling Mutant says, I'm not saying the second group of topics is bad, but any grifter or bad actor is going to be much more comfortable talking about abstract concepts like spirituality than crime statistics. Saying, I love God, I love babies really isn't controversial, particularly in a right-wing sphere. And Meta says, yeah, but talking about God, virtue, natalism, and building isn't fun or trendy. The LARPers all think that's boring shit. What's cool is saying the N-word. And so all the people who want to get in on the newest trend are going to say it. Look at the recent TikTok e-girl in literally the last couple days.
Right, exactly.
My main point,
follow whatever's fun. Whatever's fun and cool and edgy and seems hip. That's what they're going to... They don't care about the substantive stuff.
Right.
That's boring.
My main point is not that these topics... Right. So now take the substantive stuff and make it fun. Figure out a way to actually bring these people along into the more substantive thing.
Sales.
He says, my main point is not that these topics definitively identify who is good or bad, but that talking about crime, illegal immigration, and anti-white racism isn't going to get you canceled anymore. It's at a point where you say it and people in NYC think you're cool and edgy, so there's only upside. You can't gatekeep on a metric if there's no downside anymore.
Right.
So, the responses to all of this were fascinating. Seeing particular people who jumped on this, and this is the sort of people he's highlighting.
I actually liked for a while. And seeing this whole thing unfold, I'm like, oh, you guys are kind of phony, aren't you?
I have a feeling that after I do this show with Meta Prime and Dimes next week, there may be people that I thought once upon a time I might wind up being friends with that I'm not going to be friends with.
Yeah, I was just thinking that this morning, like, after seeing this on Twitter this morning, I'm like, they're not going to like Matt after next week.
Yeah, right. So beware to those of you who are in the live chat now, be on your guard because
this is why the paywall is rather high for the Discord.
Yes, precisely to keep those sorts out. And it's probably not going to keep them out. We're going to have to crack down eventually, but the rampaging horde of faggots is going to probably be directed at us very shortly. And it's interesting. So these are the people that Meta Prime is talking about. He's talking about Richard Hanania. Racism is literally all there is to anti-immigration. I'm not saying it's always wrong, but the motivations are always these people are different. We don't want them here. To accept immigration restrictionism and not want racism is in practical terms impossible. Destiny. Decolonization is just anti-white racism dressed up in stupid academic terms. I've never in my life seen someone who champions this term use it to describe any activity of non-Western countries. Lauren Southern, and with Brianna Wu, like we talked about. Brianna Wu talking to Richard Hanania. These are the sorts of people he's talking about. These post-left influencers, the Red Scare, the Dime Square, I
like the Red Scare girls. Red Scare girls.
I'm kind of inclined to as well, yeah.
Maybe because they're like the OGs. They're not grifters, you know?
Right. So they were the early post-left influencers to start becoming groupies for the irreverent right wing.
Yeah, they're basically like groupies for our band,
right?
Which that's cool.
Yeah, and he's not saying it's bad to have groupies. He's saying be able to identify who's a groupie and who's not.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
And have something to identify yourself as not simply a groupie. Like if you want to just be here just because it's fun and whatever, it's fashionable and you just want to hang out and be racist on the internet, okay, fine, whatever. But like it's not making you special. It's not like the irreverent counterculture anymore. It's increasingly becoming the mainstream culture. which gives us an opportunity then to use that as an on-ramp into building things.
And maybe we can get some of our single guys some wives now.
Right.
Groupies.
Yeah, start making the trad wives out of these these groupies.
Fix them up, make some babies.
If you see anybody who's counter-signaling these sorts of things, counter-signaling spirituality, counter-signaling virtue over degeneracy, counter-signaling natural human over transhuman, counter-signaling local building of parallel systems, counter-signaling natalism, that person is not a friend.
Is he calling all these things Jewish?
No, he's shit posting, and
okay.
There's levels to it. It's making fun of the Groypers, but also appealing to them at the same time. And he's basically just mocking Meta Prime, but he's doing it in this really catty, bitchy sort of way.
Yeah, I know. I can't stand him.
Okay, so we're getting along here toward the 2-hour mark shortly. So let's move on to something a little bit more productive. I got one last sort of political thing. Tom Luongo highlights there's a video here from the Daily Caller. I'm not going to play the video because you don't need to hear this massive retard talk. Anthony Blinken says, today, Biden and Zelensky. Notice you got to make sure you spell Zelensky with the 2 Y's. Biden and Zelensky will, quote, sign an agreement between the United States and Ukraine, a bilateral security agreement. What that means is that we're committing to support Ukraine as it builds up its defenses for the next 10 years. Ukraine doesn't even exist anymore. Ukraine is recruiting 40-year-old, like 45-year-old women and teenage dudes with Down syndrome to go fight in their front lines. Ukraine will literally be a black hole on the map in 10 years. There isn't even a Ukraine to fight for anymore. This is literally just NATO and the Western Atlanticist powers forcing Ukraine into suicide. National suicide. Who was I listening to the other day that was talking about this? It might have been Tucker. Was saying like if you were to have this premise that it was Thomas 777. He was like, the premise that Ukraine is going to win a war against Russia, like what does it mean to win a war? Like to incapacitate them economically, to occupy their capital militarily, to completely fracture them and break them as a sovereign unit. The idea that Ukraine was ever going to do that, it was absolute nonsense. Completely absurd. It's like a meme, it's a joke that people tell about like trying to invade Russia and take it over. So many empires have collapsed in that attempt. So that the very premise that Ukraine was ever going to defeat Russia in a war was madness. Completely absurd. Tom Luongo, I think, gets it right here. He says, translation, they're ring-fencing Ukraine so that Trump cannot alter anything after he takes office. There will be war, folks. This is what Blinken is saying. It may not be next year, doubtful, but they will ensure that it happens. Blinken is another renamed Ukrainian put in charge of our foreign policy to destroy our country for their retarded plans. Now, I think what's implied here is this sort of move is being made as a contingency plan in the eventuality that Trump is elected. It wouldn't be necessary to institute something like this if the assumption was that we're going to continue with business as usual.
And what stops Trump from just ripping it up the second he gets in office?
Exactly. I think someone in the replies said this. Nothing the previous admin does can control the next admin. Presidential power is real. See, for example, what Biden did to the U.S.-Mexican border on day one or the Keystone Pipeline. So it's also, really what they're doing is they're just kind of, it's like if you're, you're like trying to run out of a building and someone's chasing you and you're just like knocking boxes and shit down and behind you. Just like knocking a cardboard box in front of someone isn't going to stop them, but maybe it slows them down a little bit. So to me, this is a tacit admission that we're expecting to lose this election. This is a tacit admission that there's going to be a transfer of power, and we want to put blockades in the way to try to keep our grift going. And it's also indicative of them completely not appreciating what time it is, what sort of incoming administration and the forces that are behind it, the interests that are behind it. They want nothing to do with this.
They can play the Trump-Russia thing again if he rips up this agreement.
Right.
Then, so you told you.
Which again, like the fact that they think this is a playbook that's going to be effective. These are all indications that these are profoundly incompetent, stupid people that have completely departed from reality. And they think they can keep their LARP and their grift going but they're going to have to find a new grift. There'll be plenty of grifts to find because these fucking reptilians, they know how to sniff out the loot boxes. Now, speaking of Russia, we're going to end this on a slightly more positive note. So someone dropped this in the King Pill Discord just before we went live. And which one of these comes first? This one here. So this is a guy I've never seen before. His name is Greg Reese. At Greg Reese on Twitter. Anti-government work found at gregreese.substack.com. He's got 50,000 followers. Never even seen him, never even heard of him before. He's part of InfoWars, which is interesting because it'll be interesting to see what's happening with InfoWars. Did you see the parents, the Sandy Hook parents now want to take, I said the term, maybe I shouldn't have. They now want to take Alex Jones' social media accounts. Like $1.5 billion settlement, completely bankrupting him, taking his companies and everything. Now, but it's important. It's very important for their peace of mind that they also get his social media accounts. But
well, luckily for Alex Jones, he's such a celebrity that I think even if he gave all of that up just to placate them, not that he ever would placate them, but supposing that he did, I don't think he'd have any problem just rebooting.
Right, I agree. I mean, and hey, that's where if we're talking like patronage and there's plenty of billionaires out there who have the opportunity to really put their money where their mouth is right now.
Or for people looking for a patron, here's a guy you can throw a couple bucks to.
Absolutely.
Get rebooted.
So this guy, Greg Reese, I've got my new thing that new piece of content I'm going to be consuming when I get the chance after this show. Check this out. Look who he did an interview with just recently.
Austin Whitsitt.
Indeed. The Taurus field with Austin Whitsitt. Cymatics, resonance experiments, amazing water and sound experiment, electrostatics. This is the stuff that gets me. This is the sort of interesting stuff. If we want to start actually building things and beginning to advance science in the non-gay way, I think this is the domain for that. But this isn't what we're going to watch today. What we're going to watch is two videos. One of these he posted on June 6th, and one of them he posted on June 11th. So the first June 6th one, there's a very interesting face on the thumbnail. Check this out.
Hey.
I know that guy.
Yeah. The
power of repentance on the world around us. So we'll speed this one up just a little bit because it's a 5-minute video and the next one's 7 minutes. So we'll go to 1.5x.
There are many claims that Russia has fared better than most big countries during this deadly era of fake pandemics and experimental mandated shots. And so I traveled to Russia last December to see for myself. What I learned was that this is true, but the government is not to credit for this. While elements of the Russian Federation do protect and preserve the Russian people and their culture, the evidence shows that they were administering the same deadly shots as we've seen in the West. The number of deaths in Russia during the rollout of their vaccines exceeded 2.4 million people, making it the worst year of deaths since 1945. Data shows a correlation between vaccination and the increase in morbidity and mortality. And the head of the Russian Ministry of Health urged pregnant women to get the shot, saying it will contribute to a more comfortable and safe pregnancy. It's not the government that is saving the Russian people. It is the people themselves. What I noticed the most about the Russian people is that they are far more united than the American people. And everyone I've talked to here has told me that during the mask mandates and vaccine push, the majority of people unitedly ignored them. The police wore their masks below the chin and didn't enforce them on the people. And employers were forging documents to show vaccination when there was none. They were not fooled, and they had each other's back. Many have told me that this unity is a result of generations of hardship that has embedded the importance of community into every Russian psyche. And I am sure that this is a big part of it. But there is another big factor that has contributed to their unity, which can be adopted by anyone: repentance. Orthodox Christianity used to be the official religion of Russia. It was made illegal during the Soviet Union, and when communism fell, Orthodoxy re-emerged in a massive way. Within the first few years, over 20 million Russians were baptized, and many of these people believed that the nation must repent for allowing the Romanov family to be brutally executed by Bolsheviks during the revolution. Millions of Russians believe that repentance is the only thing that will save Russia. I've heard many American Christians say that America must repent as well, but before I came to Russia, I did not understand what repentance was. According to St. John Chrysostom, the purpose of repentance is for healing and transformation. There are 5 paths, and they are so simple that they can be practiced by anyone without submission or conformity to any dogma or belief. The first path of repentance is contrition, or the condemnation of your own sins. In order to improve at anything, you must be aware of your weaknesses. If you want to become a better carpenter, then you need to be aware of what makes you a poor one, so that you can change those things. The same goes for everything, and if you want to become a good person, you have to be aware of your own shortcomings. The second path of repentance is forgiveness. It is the overlooking of another person's sins. This is not saying that laws and justice should not be upheld. It is saying that when you are focused on other people's shortcomings, you are wasting time that should be focused on your own. We have no right or power to compel others, but we do have the power and the responsibility to change ourselves. The third path of repentance is prayer, specifically prayer that is impassioned, focused, and comes from the heart, taking the time to turn our thoughts away from worry, desire, and the mundane, and cultivate the frequency of love and gratitude. The power of prayer has been scientifically measured, and consistent group prayer has lowered crime in the areas it was practiced in. The fourth path of repentance is kind deeds towards others. The world is full of opportunities to show compassion and generosity to others in need. And the fifth path of repentance is humility, becoming more humble in our thoughts, words, and actions. According to these teachings, one must simply choose at least one of these paths each and every day. This is about taking responsibility, which is the root of every healthy society. And the outcome is quite clear. The more people practicing these 5 simple paths, the more their society will heal and transform. Reporting for InfoWars, this is Greg Reese.
Whatever that music was in the background was really cool.
Yeah, that was the Jesus prayer being sung. I've listened
In
to
Latin?
that clip. Huh?
Was that the Jesus prayer being sung in Latin? It sounded like a Gregorian chant.
Maybe. I recognize the tune. I recognize the
yeah. Yeah.
That's a video that's gotten a lot of play on my YouTube channel. Me watching it. Taylor Brown says InfoWars is promoting St. John Chrysostom and you're still blackpilling Anon? That's right. And almost 50,000 views. This just the sheer number of people who are impacted by a 5-minute video like this that is delivered in such a concise way. This is building something productive. This is a guy I want to talk to. So here's his next video. A message to the American people. This one is very interesting. He's going to interview some people in Russia. So you'll have to watch the subtitles here because they're speaking Russian.
I am in Moscow, Russia right now, at the biggest mall in Europe, Avia Park Mall, here to talk to random Russians and ask them the question, if they could say anything to the American people, what would it be?
Да, но на самом деле у нас в России все хорошо, я вам точно могу сказать. Мы все хотим, я думаю, уже что прекратилась операция СВО в целом, пришли к какому-то примирению, ведь любая война заканчивается. Естественно, мы тоже этого бы хотим.
I know most people probably can't read as fast as I am, so I'm going to pull this down to 1x.
А в целом, что бы хотел еще спросить у американцев, ну, как у них там жизнь состоит?
I would say that America is doing terrible right now. What I've learned about Russia is you guys are very united, and you seem to have each other's back. You're not fighting each other. In America, we are completely divided. We're fighting each other, and meanwhile, our government is literally killing us and destroying our country. So I'm about to go back to America, and I'm hoping when I go back, I can bring some of this spirit of unity that I've learned here in Russia back to my own people, because we need it very badly.
Да, по правде очень, да, интересно, что говорите. Да, у нас по правде я согласен, мы очень сильно объединяемся своим народом. Это очень, знаете, такая как машина, прям вот реально машина. Да, мы очень помогаем и ребятам все равно, и в целом все хорошо у нас. Да. Есть к чему стремиться, да, воспитываем молодое поколение, также показываем правильный пример, чтобы они не забывали, потому что история тоже искажается и рассказывается по-разному. А как вы знаете, у нас очень-очень глубокие корни в целом у России. Поэтому вы понимаете, о чем я говорю. Вы смотрели фильм вообще, вам переводили фильм «Романовы»? Вы вообще знаете, как династия вообще в принципе начиналась? И откуда, что там пошло?
The Romanov family to me is new. I didn't really know anything about the Romanov family. And what I've learned since I've been here is there's a lot of Orthodox Christians here that believe they have to repent for allowing the Romanov family to be brutally executed by the Bolsheviks. And I just did a report on this because a lot of American Christians believe that America needs to repent.
And what I've learned here from Orthodox Christianity, I think this might be why Russia is so united, is because they've worked on repentance.
Ну, из-за этого, да, в том числе, да, эти тоже в некоторые пункты входят. Но в целом мы просто народ очень-очень сильный.
Спасибо.
Да.
Спасибо, спасибо.
Грек, да?
Да. If you could say anything to the people in America right now, what would you say?
Ну, я бы им посоветовала, во-первых, переехать к нам в Россию, потому что наша Россия многонациональная страна, и у нас намного лучше, чем в Америке. Это, во-первых. Во-вторых, гендерное понятие там сейчас намного ухудшается, и сумасшествие происходит. У нас такого нет в России. У нас, если мужчина, то это мужчина, если женщина, то это женщина. И понятие, что мужчина переходит в женщину, либо наоборот, это не подходит. И у нас люди против этого. Также по поводу войны, вот эти вот санкции, те же самые. Как видите, у нас эти санкции, даже не видно их. То есть, что есть в магазинах у вас в Америке, что есть у нас, все то же самое. Что ничего не изменилось, ничего не поменялось, все те же самые бренды остались. Ну, думаю, все. Приезжайте к нам.
Первый вопрос, конечно же, ко всему населению и в первую очередь правительству, естественно, Соединенных Штатов Америки. Почему настолько сильно принижают институт традиционной семьи, в которой берегут традиционные ценности? Как сказать, многодетство, скажем так, от 2-3 детей и более, чтобы они воспитывались исключительно в правильном гендерном направлении. Мужчины и женщины, другого гендера быть не может. Но это так, действительно.
I don't know. I really don't know. I know that America used to value the family very much. America used to value the mother and the father and the children, and that's what made America great at one point. And it's been happening for quite some time now, starting with legalizing gay marriage. And then once they did that with the pride parades, the only thing I can imagine is that our government and our media is trying to destroy America and destroy America from within, probably similar to the Bolshevik revolution that you guys suffered 100 years ago, and similar to the communist revolution that the Chinese suffered. That's probably my best guess, because there's no other reason to me why you would destroy the family, because it seems to me like all of society is built upon the family.
Действительно. Но на самом деле ведь было же все хорошо. Мы видим это. Ну было же все хорошо у вас всегда. И тогда мы дружили. Вот как только это все пришло, этот разлад в вашу страну, понимаете, в чем дело? Государство, да, действительно рушится из-за того, что ваше правительство не желает признать, что институт семьи только он. Взаимопонимание, доверие между, как сказать, огромным количеством людей, оно зависит только от социализации будущих поколений. От социализации и развития следующих поколений. Мы должны делать наше поколение следующее богаче, умнее, а не загонять это все в то, ну, когда мужчина спит с мужчиной, я считаю, что от этого же дети не получается. Это приводит в тупиковую ветвь, да. Это как в Вавилоне. Да. Из-за большого расслоения населения, собственно, все это приводило к тому, что люди уже, ну, так сказать, не знали, что им еще попробовать. А это грех, это действительно грех во всех абсолютно культурах. Вот у нас в России мы стараемся избежать этого. Мы стараемся, люди, которые это показывают на людях, пытаются как-то это все нести в общество, мы это пресекаем. Ну, я лично. Если вы посмотрите на татуировки, у меня здесь моя супруга, мой старший сын, я и мой младший сын.
В нашей стране мира. Чтобы детки росли здоровыми, родители спокойными и счастливыми. А бабушки и дедушки радовались, что они дожили до того времени, что у них есть правнуки, внуки. И это счастье.
Reporting for InfoWars, this is Greg Reese.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed your bit of Russia propaganda for the day.
That's right.
We're waiting for the check to arrive, but we're told that it's going to arrive soon. It will. Vladimir is very grateful for us running the propaganda campaign for his great empire. I'll be very interested to see the beginning of the first clip where it talked about pokey things. This is going to be a test of the YouTube, the extent to which the YouTube censors are backing off, because it's now there's public health officials and stuff, or there's open major news networks that are posting articles saying all of this stuff, the death counts associated with it and all the disease and everything. And it seems that a lot of YouTube is loosening up in a lot of other ways. So we're going to find out if that happens with this channel or not. What are your thoughts, Cooper?
Yeah. The eternal ruse. Well, okay. 2.4 million people dead as a result of their stabbies. That's insane, dude. I don't know what our numbers are. I haven't checked it because I don't like black billing myself.
Right.
I'm gonna guess it's higher, but
I would guess that
freaking people, dude.
I would err on the side of assuming they would probably be slightly more honest with their numbers. Ours will get all.
Oh yeah, I can't trust any
jerry rigged all sorts of ways. Yeah. But who knows the background of how these interviews are set up and everything? But it very much looks like he's just walking up and talking to people who are just there to, hey, will you weigh in on this
propaganda?
Yeah, right.
He's getting paid by Vladimir.
But like, could you imagine how difficult it would be to set something like that up in the U.S. to just go like talk to people who are on the street and have them weigh in on these issues and really get right to the heart of it? And I've heard this from other people who've been to Russia, that this is much more the average stock of the Russian person is much higher than the average stock in the U.S., which shouldn't be any surprise. But every single one of those people, and who knows what other interviews they did that sucked that they didn't include, but each of those interviews, like, these people are pretty deeply insightful on the precise core issues that are happening. And it's interesting, the one chick who talks about the sanctions and how they've, like, she's like, if anything, the stuff she's saying is like, oh, there's maybe a downside. You get all the same stores, all the same companies, But what this indicates is, number one, the American Atlanticist European power establishment that's been trying to wage war with Russia through the proxy of Ukraine is just so incompetent. They just cannot help stepping on their own dicks. Imagine like applying sanctions to a country that you're at war with, and the country's like, okay, it's silly that you did that. It didn't really affect us in any way. and now this sort of thing has ripple effects, because there's lots of countries that thread about the corkboarding, loyalty. There's a lot of countries that have played ball with the U.S. power block because of, you just have to exist. And they're small countries, not necessarily all that powerful, or they're on the way up, so they're taking advantage of whatever scaffolding is there for you. And they're seeing all of this happen, and it's just a blaring neon sign saying this government apparatus is all bark and very little bite. Like, they don't have the ability, they don't have the will, they don't have the competence to actually back up any of the initiatives that they're pursuing. They're trying to wage war and they're incompetent. Eric Prince has talked about this pretty extensively, that he said for a long time the U.S. has had a military technology edge, and this is very quickly not becoming the case. He's talked about some specific things. I think it was in the conversation with Tucker. He's talked about some specific advancements that both the Ukrainians and the Russians have made. And he's not coming from a Russian sympathetic perspective, but he's talking about like the battlefield innovations that they've been making on like drone warfare and everything. He said that, like, we've had with drone warfare, we've had what's the term? Like a step up in military technology in general that's equivalent to like the discovery of and application of gunpowder, because now it's you're contending with the possibility of having you could take a $2,000 drone and retrofit it with explosives and launch it 100 miles an hour into someone's face, and you don't know that it's coming until it explodes in your face. Imagine like trying to skeet shoot drones, like flying grenades essentially that are flying 100 miles an hour and zooming all over the place, and you've got to try to like shoot them down. This is causing the innovation. This is causing is nets. So nets are the thing that you use to combat drones. But all of this innovation, this military innovation, is happening on the battlefront. And Russia is really beginning to lead the way with all of this because they're the ones who are prosecuting this war, and they're the ones who have this incentive to win. So they're having to develop and adapt on the fly. Meanwhile, the U.S. the Treasury is being looted constantly, and it's not being put into productive applications. They're not innovating. Everyone's taking their cut. Massive waste. So what's happening in real time is the U.S. is losing the ability to actually keep up with military technology, which gets us back to the significance of the Gundo phenomenon, because that's the primary thing that they're working on. So ultimately, you're going to get the guys. It's kind of like you have the pipeline from playing video games to like fighter pilots or drone pilots. You have all the guys who grew up playing video games, so it's a very natural thing for them to start being like actual drone pilots or even fighter pilots. That sort of thing is playing out in an even more magnified way, where it's all the young guys who've grown up in this world with the technology and everything who are at the front edge of innovation in military technology now. I know there's plenty of you out there that probably get squeamish talking about innovating in military technology, but this is a necessary thing. It's not, Christianity is not pacifist. It's necessary to have armies and military leaders and to be able to engage in military action as part of having a nation. So I would rather my nation be very militarily capable than not.
There's some great saints who were warriors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it was St. John Chrysostom, actually, who he has a really interesting quote talking about the necessity of princes and having standing armies and training militarily and serving your country, serving your nation by participating in the military, which is kind of probably a mind bender for most modern Christians. Anyways, we're right at the 2-hour mark, so we are going to peace out now. Thank you for showing up today, guys. I appreciate you. Hopefully this stream stays up. Like the stream, please. Subscribe to the channel. It's Friday, so go listen to some Rebecca Black, and we will be back on Monday. I have, I believe, 2 interviews ready and scheduled to be done next week. And then I'll be back with the ASTROLABE on Monday morning. And yeah, have a good weekend. Thanks for joining us today, Cooper.
Stay tuned for the Olympic.
Oh yeah. Yeah, if you want to see a preview of the Olympic, you could join the King Pill Discord. We've got our hype man, Taylor Brown. Sign up for the Discord, kingpill.com. Go join the Discord, and you can see Cooper has begun the production of the Olympic, and he dropped a little teaser in there for you guys yesterday. So we'd love to see you there in the Discord with us.